Super Mario and the Raving Rabbids, two different franchises that we figured would never cross over, especially when we heard about it for the first time just about half a year ago. And when we'd heard about it, a lot of people were kind of put off by the notion of these two franchises kind of mixing up and coming out the other end with a tactical RPG style game where you never actually control the characters outside of battle. But in a world now where Final Fantasy and Assassin's Creed have crossed over and Suda51 is running around in a Shovel Knight shirt, it almost seems commonplace with some of these crossovers, and it seems less weird now than it did long ago. And now that we're pretty much past the initial shock, right, of the crossover, this weird crossover, we're left with a game that is interesting because it's a different take on tactical RPGs. Now, I myself am a big fan of tactical RPGs, with probably my favorite franchise right now being Disgaea, but I love playing them. You know, some of the favorites include, obviously, Final Fantasy Tactics, even all the way up to the latest, really mainstream breakthrough with XCOM that really got people who don't usually play those games playing them. So now, let's take a look at Mario Rabbids and see, well, how well it actually does when stacked up against some others.
The story begins with a young girl in her basement who's a gifted inventor and happens to be a big fan of Super Mario. Her latest invention is a device called the Super Merge Helmet, which allows objects to be merged into one. While on a lunch break, the Rabbids invade the basement through their time washing machine, and they end up taking the Super Merge Helmet as well as a bunch of Mario-themed items that manage to get sucked into a vortex. Beepo, who is the inventor's AI assistant, follows the Rabbids into the Mushroom Kingdom, where the Rabbids and Mario franchise begin their crazy crossover.
Now, the plot in the beginning sounds really weird and it sounds really forced, and that's because, well, getting some of these crossovers to happen and kind of keep them in canon if you can, it's not easy. You usually have to do some weird thing with time travel or space-time continuum or vortexes, and that's kind of what they did here. And yeah, it seems weird. It doesn't seem to really fit in with either universe, but I mean, that's just what they had to do. And really, when you get past that fantastical nature of the beginning, it starts to get a little better with the plot.
Once we get through the odd opening events, the rest of the story has Mario and friends racing to track down the Rabbid who currently has the Super Merge Helmet, named Spawny.
Spawny is obviously a call to me. I know Ubisoft watches the channel, so thanks, I appreciate it.
Now look, after getting past the weird crossover and the hard-to-believe opening, we're treated with a take on the classic tactical RPG gameplay that became more mainstream when XCOM had its revival. This is a tactics-based shooter that aims to bring in a more novice crowd and introduce them to this genre. Before we get to the gameplay, however, let's start with the first thing you'll notice as soon as you start playing: the graphics. These visuals are absolutely gorgeous. Colors pop off the screen and the environments are lush with creativity and a bright art style. We've become accustomed to dark, dingy settings this generation, and I really appreciate when a studio attempts something so contrasting to the norm. The Snowdrop engine is on full display here, showing massive range. Keep in mind, this is the same engine that powers The Division. Most of us would have a hard time believing that if it wasn't for Ubisoft telling us ahead of time. This really shows just how versatile this engine is, and being only the second complete game with Snowdrop makes me wonder what else this engine can do. Of course, the next game up using Snowdrop will be the next South Park game, but we still don't know how it will perform since it hasn't released yet. Either way, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle is a sight to behold on the little console, and as of today, in my opinion, is the best looking game on the Switch from a technical perspective. Now, I alluded earlier to the gameplay being very approachable by tactics RPG newcomers, and this holds completely true. I've noticed when talking to people, they don't like tactics games because they can be overwhelming and even boring. I look at Mario Rabbids and see a game that wants to help these people and ease them into the genre without throwing too much at them at any one time. We see this right away in the first world, where a lot of handholding takes place, and even throughout the remainder of the game, new enemy types and allies are introduced slowly, with little punishment if you lose. In fact, if you do lose, you could start the entire battle over from the beginning. No permadeath, no loss of coins, nothing.
And this has kind of led to me seeing a lot of people who really play a lot of these tactics RPGs to say the game is a little too easy for them. And to a degree, I can understand that. I didn't find the game particularly difficult most times, but what I did notice is this is a great entry point for anyone who's never played a tactics-based RPG, and maybe when they do play it, they'll look into some others. I mean, there are games that have been hidden for a while that a lot of people don't know about, like Front Mission 3, which is a great strategy tactical RPG that you don't play. A lot of people maybe want to approach these games, but they can't because they either find them too hard, too boring, or there's just too much stuff going on, especially if they're used to things like action-based games. So if you're a fan of these type of games, tactical RPGs, you should really appreciate the approachable nature of Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle.
The skill tree has been implemented really well into the core of the game and becomes crucial when creating a strategy for every battle. This was weird to me at first, but then I started to realize that you use the skill tree much like you would an arsenal of weapons in other games when preparing for a fight. See, the skill tree can be reset at any time, and the game wants you to reset that tree a lot, and try different combinations to help you through tough situations. For example, an upcoming battle may be objective-based and you need to reach a certain point to win. These skirmishes require great amounts of movement-based abilities, so before you start, you want to reset your skills and spec heavily into movement parts of that skill tree. Other times you'll want to fight a battle from long range, so you want to spec into higher ground damage and hero sight. I love the idea of using the skill tree as something that isn't permanent and is instead used as a constant solution to difficult bosses or objectives. Throughout the 4 worlds you explore, you will find several chests with collectibles, and to say several may be selling it short. There are a ton of things to find in this game, and while they're not all weapons or things that will affect the game, collecting soundtracks and concept art really feels like a callback, and I appreciate the idea. That said, if you are a completionist, get ready to solve some puzzles and explore, because there is an absolute mountain of stuff to find here.
Now overall, while I did enjoy my time with this game, there were some flaws that did stick out to me. There wasn't like an overabundance of them, but as you're about to see, there were a few that kind of caught me off guard a little bit.
The big thing that stuck out to me in this game is the lack of character customization. See, the most you will do with your characters is spec into a skill tree that is ever-changing and equip weapons. I feel like the inclusion of equipable armor would have helped, or even an accessory for each character. I also was surprised that your characters do not level up individually while playing. Instead, at the end of certain milestones in the game, all characters will gain a health boost and nothing else. While this strategy by developers has pretty much eliminated any power leveling in the game, I still miss the ability to level up characters and get a little deeper into the customization of my party. Something else that really caught me off guard during my playthrough were sudden difficulty spikes that appeared at times out of nowhere. I first noticed this midway through World 2 and then again at the beginning of World 3. These spikes in difficulty can be overcome by veterans quickly, but casual players may give up altogether and walk away from the game due to frustration. Look, I'm not saying make the game a cakewalk throughout, just don't dial it up to 11 out of nowhere when your game is designed as a casual tactics RPG experience.
So now the big question that we are obviously looking to answer is the game worth buying? Is it worth your hard-earned money, your $60, and then possibly the season pass going forward when the DLC drops? Is it worth this kind of money? And my answer to that is yes. To a degree. It depends what you want out of your game. If you want Super Mario, if you want, like, obviously platforming action, not your game, right? Maybe you see Mario in the front and you're like, that looks cool, I'll go check some reviews, and you want that kind of game, don't buy this game. It's not for you. But if you want to try something new because maybe you've never played Tactics RPG, or maybe you want a new Tactics RPG because you like them, this is a good game to get. There's a lot to do, and you'll get a lot of time out of it if you're a fan of collecting. Now that said, some of the collections, well, you may not actually be that interested in them because not all of them help you, but soundtracks, concept art, those are things that they purposely sprinkled through for completionists that like to search and find things. But to me, it's a quality experience. Everything really is in place for this being a franchise possibly going forward that I could see. I mean, really, I know it sounds crazy in the first place. Mario and Rabbids, tactics RPG based system, weird, right? But I like it, it worked out well, the quality is there, and I do hope to see maybe a Mario Rabbids 2, or even, because the art style it works really well with some of the predecessors, maybe something like a Super Mario RPG 2 with this kind of visual style. Either way, good game, I would check it out. If you enjoy some of the playthroughs that you're seeing online, it's probably worth your money. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you next time.